Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and I'm joined once again by Grayson, multiple-time collaborator on the channel, and by some odd coincidence, we both are wearing Gorillaz shirts today, so it was not planned, but I think it's one of those quirks of the universe that it just worked out.
Listen, great tastes think alike.
Yeah, so I randomly clicked on this debate on Kent's channel the other day. Weirdly, it doesn't have a moderator. It seems like it's just Kent and this other guy. Donnie is not there. And usually I expect very little from debates where I don't know the person. But this guy, he really impressed me, honestly. So I'm going to have his channel tagged. I'm going to link it. He just made his channel. We're going to start the debate about halfway through, and yeah, let's get started.
So you've seen the debate. I have not seen the debate, but I've heard good things about it. I'm actually excited, which I never thought I would say for a Kent Hovind debate. I told myself I was done, and just when I thought I was done, you pulled me back in, AJ. But I'm happy to be here. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what this is all about. Also, RIP to Donnie for, I guess he's out of the job now as Kent Hovind's debate moderator guy.
Yeah. All right. And yeah, just, standard, just let me know if you want me to pause it.
I don't have anything on the amoeba. But I don't see how you can look at that and not say that we're just another animal. You've got fish, salamander, tortoise, chick, hog, cat, rabbit, human. You go back up to the embryonic stage, pretty much identical. Even people that do this as a profession have a hard time distinguishing between embryos.
Okay, well, let me explain, Keith, in case you haven't studied this. Ernst Haeckel made these drawings that you're using on your screen right here. There's his chart. You're using his exact chart by Ernst Haeckel back in 1869. Darwin wrote his book 1859 and said, we should find evidence for my theory. Haeckel loved Darwin's book and said, he was an embryologist. He studied embryos. That's what he did for a living, professor of embryology at University of Jena in Germany.
I just have to correct this. He was a professor of zoology, not an embryology professor. So Kent's going to get a lot wrong here. And this is what this stuff is fresh on my mind because this is what my debate is going to be about with Kent coming up pretty soon this month on the 19th. It's all about Haeckel and embryology. I was especially triggered by this part.
Before we get too much into this, debunking all the nonsense I'm sure that Kent is about to spew, I just want to point out we wore matching shirts accidentally, but it looks like they're wearing matching shirts as well in this debate. I don't know how much of an accident that was, but good on you, Keith. I see you.
Yeah, I think that should give you a sign of the attitude that this guy is bringing to his debate. He intentionally wore the Hawaiian shirt. Bonus points for that, and it's a nice shirt.
You love to see it.
Love that purple.
Haeckel made this chart in 1874. His own university held a trial and said, Haeckel, you're lying, okay? This chart is baloney. On top, Keith, are Haeckel's drawings. Underneath are actual photographs from an embryologist, Dr. Richardson, in, where was this at? One university in St. George Medical School in London. He took photographs of those same creatures. What you showed is drawings made by Haeckel, and they're fake. He admitted it. His own university convicted him of fraud. He said, I should feel condemned, but hundreds of other biologists lie under the same charge. He lied. Haeckel's drawings are fraud. I'm shocked that you would use that as evidence for evolution when it's been proven wrong for 150 years. That's not evidence. What's your next best one?
You're saying that embryos don't look like that.
I did not understand what he said.
I'm saying you're saying that embryos don't look like that.
Correct. I'll show you on top, right here. The top row is Haeckel's drawings. The bottom row is actual photographs. Yes, the salamander embryo does not look like Haeckel's drawing. The turtle embryo does not look like Haeckel's drawing. The rabbit embryo does not look like Haeckel's drawing.
So I would just say personally, I think that rows 2 and 5 do look pretty similar just by themselves. And as for row 2, like the column 2, that's a salamander, and Haeckel removed the embryonic yolk from that embryo. So that's why the bottom picture has that sort of bulbous appearance. Same thing with chicken embryos, because even though all vertebrate embryos share a lot of traits, some grow in an egg and some grow in the womb, like the mammals. So and they have a yolk if they grow in an egg, but the embryo still looks very similar. So that's the reason that. So if you remove that, I think they do look pretty similar.
I mean, I largely agree. I mean, we have like pretty remarkable real photographs of embryos in the modern day, and they really don't look that significantly different than Haeckel's drawings. I mean, Kent also seems to conveniently ignore the entire field of evolutionary like development, evo-devo, which is right along step with the comparisons of embryological development, and he just seems to ignore that as an entire branch of science.
Yeah, I think everybody has scientific fields that, if they care about science, that they find particularly interesting. I think evo-devo is one of the most fascinating fields of science, personally. Just the connections between, just the idea. I know like abiogenesis is not part of evolution theory, but just the idea of a single cell, or the first life forming as single cellular, and the fact that we grow as a single cell in our mother's womb, to me, that's an interesting connection. But Kent, I pointed that out to Kent too, and he just says, "Oh, that's not. There's nothing significant about that."
Well, you see, AJ, God done it.
Right.
I also just want to point out, I love how this guy is subtly trolling with like on the monitor behind him, you just see the ape slowly like becoming like a human face. Like pretty great A trolling. I love to see it.
I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that's good.
He lied. The drawings are fake. Try again. Give me your next best one.
Okay. This one is from Britannica.
What's going on? Joe, shut it off. We got background noise here. Embryology has been proven to be not evidence at all for evolution. There's plenty of stuff on that. They're still teaching it, I know, and it's sad. They should not. Those little folds of skin that they're claiming are gill slits on this biology textbook. Here, I'll show you. If you want to know the truth about them, I'd like to know truth. That's all I want to know. Those folds of skin develop into bones in the ear and glands in the throat. They never have anything to do with breathing. The fish has folds of skin. They develop into gills.
Right. So Kent understands the difference. So
yeah.
what's the problem here?
They both have pharyngeal slits that develop into different structures. That's kind of the whole point of evo-devo, is that like the early steps are remarkably similar across really disparate forms of life, and those early embryological structures develop like the early pathways are all very similar, and then they develop into radically different morphologies like later on in evolution, in embryological development. I mean, that's the whole point of the field, is comparing this development cycle for similarities and differences.
Right. And it's not just humans and fish embryos, but all vertebrate embryos share the pharyngeal arches, as well as postanal tail, a notochord, and there's one more, like a dorsal nerve cord, I think. I'm trying to memorize these for my debate, but it's like the big four that all vertebrates share, as among other traits.
Mm-hmm.
The humans do not. They become the bones of the ear, the stapes and incus, and glands in the throat, thyroid.
Here we go.
They never have anything to do with breathing. So don't use that as evidence. Don't teach that to anybody else, okay, that's evidence for evolution, because it's not. If you got real evidence, I'd be glad to see it. But Haeckel lied. There's his drawings. On top are actual photographs. He lied. But they're still teaching that. And I'm sorry, you probably paid to get the education to learn that. So ask for your money back.
Grayson, would it be possible for you to get a refund on your tuition if you didn't like the education you got? Is that a thing?
Well, I'm curious about how much Kent paid for his 4 PhDs. I think he should probably get a refund on that, considering that none of them are from accredited institutions.
Right. Yeah, for this part, they don't really talk about embryology as much as I would like to see. The only criticism I would have is that I was wishing that this guy would just bust out the microphotographs, because he has the Haeckel drawings, and to me that's what you come back with. You say, well, even if the drawings are fake, I could even grant you that. It doesn't matter because we have microphotographs, which are always going to be more accurate than drawings from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
And like I've always heard this claim about Haeckel was put on trial by his university or whatever, but I don't know. I haven't seen a source for that yet. Maybe you've come across that in your research, but I've never seen anyone back that up with a source.
No. Kent, however, has been tried for fraud and lost.
Yeah. Dude, he got so mad at me for saying that he went to jail for tax evasion. He was saying that is a blatant lie. Grayson is a liar for saying that. And I'm like, he's like, I went to jail actually for structuring, not tax evasion. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You owed taxes that you evaded paying. You did not pay the taxes that you owed, and you went to jail. How is that not tax evasion? I mean, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe any lawyers in the chat can correct me on that, but it sounds like tax evasion to me. You are literally evading your taxes.
Right. Kent says that, I'm going to try to explain this quickly. I'm not a lawyer. IANAL. I love that acronym. I just think that's funny. I'm not a lawyer.
Oh,
yeah. So Kent did go to jail for structuring, but he had 45 counts, and some of them were for failure to withhold Social Security taxes from his employees. So the structuring was directly connected to tax fraud, because what he did was he structured his withdrawals, kept them right under $10,000 every 2 weeks, and then he used that money to pay his missionaries, really they were employees, under the table with cash rather than a paycheck that has a paper trail. And that paycheck would have had those Social Security taxes deducted and paid to the government, but he pocketed that, which is tax fraud. So the structuring is directly connected.
It just sounds like tax evasion to me. He's evading his taxes.
Yeah, there's like this meme from Rick and Morty. It's like, that sounds like tax evasion with more steps.
Exactly.
You also mentioned about whenever a new form, species, kind, whatever you want to call it, emerges, that they're not going to have any kind of mate to find. But
Correct.
that only works if you don't understand evolution and you're thinking of it as a rock giving birth to an elephant or whatever. Because it doesn't work in big jumps like that. You're not going to have one life form that's vastly different than the rest of the population.
Well, my objection is
that you touched on it when you were talking about this trait would just get mixed back into the gene pool. It would get mixed back into the gene pool, but it would still be in the gene pool, and it would continue to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And its emergence would become more and more frequent until it took over, provided it was a beneficial mutation, even though it's a very minuscule mutation.
Right. That's a great story you told, but it's not observable science. Nobody ever sees this happen. You can imagine that it happened, and you can imagine you got billions and trillions of years for it to happen in. But again, science is what we can observe. I agree there are family
It's not
trees of
gonna happen
humans.
within one person's lifetime or two people's lifetimes or 100 people's lifetime. You're not going to see major change like that without the long periods of time.
That's why I said your God is time.
Well, I can't drive to California in 13 seconds, but that doesn't mean I can't drive to California.
Correct. So if somebody's able to drive step by step to California, I agree. I've driven to California a couple of times. I don't want to do it again. Okay. But this textbook shows, look at this, boys and girls. See this chart right here? I'll draw it up for you. There's the chart they use. Millions of years. Okay. I agree there's a family tree of frogs. 7,371 now described species of frog. Probably had a common ancestor called a frog. And I don't know how many kinds of snakes, whole bunch. And they teach the kids, they all go back to a common ancestor. This chart that's used in public schools all over America and all over the world says cows and hummingbirds and frogs and fish have a common ancestor. Say it loud, boys and girls. An octopus is my 325 millionth cousin, and I'm proud.
Can we pause it here? Because
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of letting Kent steer the conversation away from the question that was asked. Like he was trying to get Kent to focus on his whole misconception that, oh, even if there is a beneficial mutation, how's he going to get married and find a nice wife? And that, like, you know, and he has this misconception about things. And he was trying to pin him down on that. And now Kent's just already off, like, look at the children's textbooks. They're saying you're related to a pine cone, like just his basic script. And he's like, not really. I mean, so far, maybe he will bring him back to that, but he's sort of letting him go off on his whole side tangent, and ignoring the fact that, like, hey, we literally have seen genes achieve fixation in populations, like from single mutants in an individual to achieving fixation in a population. Like, we've observed it in a lab, we've observed it in nature. This is not some big mystery. I don't understand, like, how what Kent even thinks is happening in those cases, because it's a direct refutation of what he just said.
Yeah, and I just like to point out there's no family tree of frogs. It's part of the tree of life. Creationists are the one that thinks that there's an orchard where you have individual trees of life for every animal or kind. And as for he was talking about the part of the tree of life with snakes. It's like, yeah, they had a common ancestor. So did salamanders have a common ancestor with those snakes. And you go back far enough and you start to see snakes that had legs and salamanders that had legs and salamanders that don't have legs. And it starts to get a little confusing about which is which.
Speaking of, AJ, did I tell you that I did a open mic with this Australian creationist, John Mackay, who claimed that he had predicted transitional fossils between lizards and snakes, because that's not evolution, that's devolution. And so he literally said that snakes evolved from lizards, which, I mean, seems to contradict everything that Kent has ever said in his entire career of one kind cannot become another kind, because snakes and lizards are two different kinds. But he was saying that he predicted that there should be transitional fossils that are halfway between a lizard and a snake. And he's trying to claim that as being evidence for creationism. I'm like, dude, this is like stealing valor.
Yeah.
This is propaganda. This isn't science. Nothing but propaganda to teach a religion called evolution.
I'll tell you what's propaganda when you have posters of Hitler stapled to the trees at DAL. That's propaganda. That's what
in the kitchen.
Yeah, Grayson, that was what convinced me. Your video, that part is what convinced me the DAL is a cult. That right there. Seriously.
You can't even get a snack in the kitchen without being bombarded by anti-evolutionist like propaganda, where it's just like, did you know Hitler believed in evolution? Like, while you're just trying to like make a coffee at the coffee maker. Like,
yeah. Like, I'm not trying to think about the Holocaust right now, Kent. We just want coffee.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for those in the audience that don't know, I went to Dinosaur Adventureland in January, and yeah, what I saw there was both shocking and not surprising at all.
there was a lot that I didn't know, honestly, which was surprising. That was such a great video. Really one of the probably the best video you've ever done, I would say.
Yeah, I was
So,
super proud of it. I thought it came out like really hilarious. Just the actual footage of some of the stuff that Kent says while I'm there, as well as just the pure absurdity of the entire day and Dinosaur Adventureland. Like you couldn't write comedy that good.
yeah, I don't think Ken was very happy that you just showed up. Something
He didn't
tells
even
me.
recognize me. I've debated this man 3 times, and like I showed up there, he literally absolutely no recognition. This man is incapable of absorbing new information into his brain.
That's hilarious. All right, let's go.
These family trees do not exist. All we see is cows make cows. Amoeba, bacteria, have an 8-hour generation time. You say you can't see it in one lifetime. Well, let's use bacteria. They can get born, grow up, get married, have babies in 8 hours. In one day, you can see 3 generations. In one scientist's lifetime, if he was to study it for 50 years, take 50 times 365 times 3, he gets a whole bunch of generations. We still only see them make bacteria.
Oh.
Protozoa only make protozoa. Amoeba only make amoeba. We don't see it happening. But you want to believe, and you're welcome to believe it, that the protozoa slowly turned to a biology teacher. I'm saying, great, believe that if you want, but that's not observable. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. We don't observe protozoa produce anything except baby protozoa. Everything you said tonight is what you imagine happening slowly.
Because like it has been pointed out. I mean, again, he's not capable of learning new information, but so many people have pointed out to him so many times the various experiments that have been done that have shown single-celled organisms evolving multicellularity. This has been done not just with single-cellular algae like Chlamydomonas, which he is clearly aware of and refuses to remember or learn about, but then continues to make claims that it's impossible. But this is also was recently done with E. coli. Like this is not a huge major thing anymore. Like this has been done in multiple labs. We've seen single-celled evolve into multicellularity. They're not just colonies. They have differentiated cell roles, and they have actual like reproductive tissues and somatic tissues. I mean, these are not just colonies. These are not every single cell just trying to get their own resources and trying to reproduce themselves like a colony. This is an actual multicellular organism that evolved while we were watching it evolve in a lab. I mean, he cannot continue to make this tired, repeatedly debunked claim over and over again, other than sheer stubborn ignorance.
Yeah, Chlamydomonas, that experiment was over 30 weeks and it evolved an extracellular matrix. And we know it's not a colony because in a colony, an individual cell can break off and live on its own, but in a multicellular organism, the cells will die if they're separated. So Kent has done 5 different debates where somebody has given Chlamydomonas as an example, but maybe he just forgot. I don't know.
Honestly, he probably has forgotten. I mean, I honestly do not think that a single thing I have ever said to Kent in any of our debates he could actually remember right now.
True.
Over long ago. We can't see it now because it happened too slow and long ago. But a lot of fairy tales start off that way. Long ago and far away. That's all you've got is another fairy tale, Keith. I'm sorry. Another fairy tale. It's not science. My throat is hurting. I don't want to go too much longer. I've been talking for 2 days straight here. Any other evidence you want to give for evolution?
Can I just ask real quick? AJ, can you think of a single fairy tale, not Star Wars, that begins with a long time ago, very far away? Like, just off the top of your head. I mean, this is like a little nitpick, but like, seriously, what is Ken talking about? Like, fairy tales often begin this way.
Yeah. Like, Star Wars is not a fairy tale.
Yeah.
That's clearly what he's referring to, because it's
That's the only thing I can think of that begins like that.
yeah. I don't know.
Do you
Like,
know
I don't
what?
think he's
Like, he always is saying that time is God for atheists. Like, do you have any idea? Like, what could he possibly mean by that? It's not like we worship time or pray to time, or we think that time intervenes like to do miracles, or time is some supernatural intelligence. It's not a mind. How is it anything like a god?
because he knows he always says evolution is a religion, and then he gets called out on the definition of religion, where it's like, well, a religion usually means that you worship a deity. There are some religions like Buddhism where you don't always have that, but traditionally you worship a supernatural being. And people are always like, well, what's the god? If evolution is a religion, what's the god? And so he can't just says time is the god. He just picks that, I guess.
Maybe it's just because an answer to a lot of his questions is time. Like, he'll be like, well, why don't we see this today? Because it's not enough time, Kent. Like, it's like, oh, so time is your god or something. Like, maybe just because he hears when he asks a stupid question and people respond to him saying there's not enough time, then he'd be like, well, everyone keeps giving me the answer of time, so it can't be that my questions are stupid and that time really is the answer to them. It must be that time is their god and they worship time as a god. Like, that's the level of like self-deceit and like short-circuiting going on in his brain.
Well, Kent seems to think that his ace in the hole is the fact that you can't see huge macroevolutionary changes in a human lifespan, like single-celled to humans. So he knows that, and so he always thinks it's like a gotcha that, aha, we need more time. It takes a long period of time. You said the T word, but as you said, that's been pointed out to Kent, we've seen in the lab single-cell to multicellular evolution. We've seen microevolution, which is still evolution. And we've seen macroevolution on smaller scales. You just can't see it on such a great, like Kent always wants it to be single cell to human. And yeah, that we can't show you that, Kent, but that doesn't invalidate the entire scientific field.
Yeah, and you can show that in the fossil record, which he just says doesn't exist, like an ostrich sticking its head in the sand, like, nuh-uh.
That is one that confuses me, how he says there's no such thing as there's no fossil record. There are fossils, but it's not a record. What does that mean? It's not a record. I don't get that.
I think because he believes that they were all laid down at once, so it's not a sequential ordering in time.
You just like blew my mind.
I think because he literally believes that they're all laid down vertically and then just shifted horizontally or something. It's really insane.
Well, laid down horizontally. I can't even picture that. All right, let's keep going.
Geological.
One topic at a time.
Those are all buzzwords for you.
Well, hold it. Let's go one at a time. I agree. Fossils, there are lots of fossils in the ground. I have a huge fossil collection in my museum. Here's a fossil fish. Okay. All we really know from any fossil is it died. You could not prove it had any children at all, let alone different children. Well, okay. I believe this fish probably had parents. That I would agree. I don't think I could prove it had babies. I certainly could not prove it had babies that lived or babies that were different.
But you can
all we've
prove
ever seen
that species of fish reproduced.
I don't know that this one reproduced and had babies at all.
Not that specific fish, that species of fish.
I don't even know that. It might have gone extinct. This might have been the last one. All I know is
it
we found it in the rock.
That species must have reproduced or it wouldn't exist.
Well, no, it must have had parents. We don't know that it had children.
That were the same species as that fish.
The parents
so
reproduced.
This is reproduced. Whether that specific one reproduced or not, that species was reproductive.
Has anybody ever seen a fish produce a non-fish baby? I think the
No,
answer
because
would be
that's not
no.
how evolution works. It's going to keep
Evolution
producing
doesn't
a
work at all.
fish until it gets to a point where you kind of wonder, is that still a fish? Can we still call that a fish? And then it'll keep going until it's like, yeah, no, we can't call that a fish anymore.
Well, again, you're off into imagination land. You just use the word farm, F-A-R-M, fish, turn to amphibians, amphibians turn to reptiles, reptiles turn to mammal. This is the evolution propaganda. So you think at some point this fish or a fish turned into an amphibian.
No.
So it went from breathing with gills to breathing with lungs.
No, it probably went breathing from a combination of both gills and lungs.
Okay, it probably went.
then
Again, you're showing your faith. You believe it probably happened. That's not science.
Like, we know that genetically speaking, the most similar fish to all land tetrapods are lungfish. Lungfish. Fish with lungs. This is not just, oh, we have to assume. Like, there are fish today that still have lungs. The coelacanth. I mean, Kent knows that because he loves to talk about it. Oh, it's a living fossil. Like, he knows that there are fish that have lungs still today.
Right. Yeah, they're called lungfish.
Exactly. I mean, this is so dumb. Oh.
Yeah, and the fact that he like does not get that he's talking about the species and not the individual.
I've tried to talk through this with creationists before. Like, they insist that there's some kind of limit on diversity or difference over time. Like, they'll agree. Like, if I say, okay, you agree that your children are slightly different than you. Yes. Okay, so you agree that after 5 generations, they would be more different than you than your children. Yes. Okay, so after 1,000 generations, they'd be even more different. Yes. Okay, so then 1,000,000 generations from now, those genes are going to be super, super different. Yes, they have to be. The differences continue to add up. And then they'll be like, okay, but no, they're all still human. It's like, so they're human, but their DNA is so radically different than ours that they don't even, if you're plotting the genomes, they would plot way out here, way outside of the genetic variation of all humans today. They'd be way over here because those differences add up every generation. But okay, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, their logic, they think that there has to be some kind of limit, and like, where those differences no longer add up, but no one's ever been able to demonstrate that ever in a lab, empirically. Like, like, why do they think that these differences stop adding up? They agree that there's differences every generation that get more and more and more every generation, but they have this faith that eventually they just have to stop. There's got to be some kind of limit, and they don't know what that is. They don't know how it works. They've never seen it, but they have faith that there has to be, because otherwise they would be wrong.
I just think they don't have a concept of deep time, so they literally can't fathom it. It's like that video that you made was really interesting when you were talking about the split brain patients who will fabricate a story just because, even though you know that it's not that they're lying, but you know that what they're saying is bullshit. You know what I mean? But I thought that was fascinating because I feel like I've seen that in my personal life, people who will fabricate the most outlandish stories for no reason. And it's like, how does your brain work? I don't understand that.
Yeah, their left brain interpreter is working in overdrive to come up with some kind of narrative that convinces them, oh, this is why this happened. And then they're just convinced, regardless of what the facts are, what the evidence shows. They have a bias towards the stories that they tell themselves to try to justify or explain the reality around them or what they're doing with their life. And then they cling on to these stories because they've, in Ken's case, I mean, he's just conflated it with his entire identity. Like, he cannot allow himself to think that he might be wrong about something, because that would cause his entire life to have been a waste. His entire identity of who he is would be negated if he ever realized he was wrong. He's dug himself so deep in this trench of creationism that he will never climb out, because if he did, like he would just have such an existential crisis, his head would explode.
Yeah, I think that's part of why he has those posters all over DAL. It's not just for the guests, but it's also to help reinforce that mantra to himself.
And his cult members.
Right. Yeah. So, all right, let's keep going. Because this is when the debate gets good, I think.
Keith, it's not science. It's a religion. You believe it happened. It probably happened. It had to because we're here. You've already decided the end product. You already decided amoeba turned to humans. That's already in your mind. Now, how did it happen? You're not worried about did it happen. You're just worried about how did it happen. You're not even willing to consider did it happen because you've already decided. You think it happened. Okay. I'm telling you, I have lots of
That's actually where you're wrong, because that would be considered dogma, and that only exists in a religion, which evolution is not. If we get some evidence that shows, hey, we were wrong right here. This was wrong. Let's fix this. And that's what we do.
Okay. Well, show me the evidence for these family trees. Here is a fossil clam in the closed position. Clams open as soon as they die. If you go to a restaurant and eat clams, which I haven't done, I've never been that hungry, it has to be closed when they dip it in the hot water. Because if it's open, that means it's dead. It means it's going to have all kinds of bacterial problems, okay? So if a clam dies, it opens. I think everybody agrees with that. So the way to get fossilized closed clams, and there are trillions of them in the world, we've probably got 100 of them here in our museum, petrified closed clams had to be buried fast and buried alive. I think that's pretty good evidence for a flood, like Noah's flood. I'm not asking everybody to teach Noah's flood in public school. I don't think we should teach origins at all in public school, creation or evolution. Don't teach either one. They're both religious.
Have you ever heard of the survivalship bias? The very popular case of it in World War II, whenever they were assessing the damage from planes that came back from war, and they were trying to figure out which parts of the plane to arm. So they were looking at all these planes that came back, and they noticed they had bullet holes in all the wings and very similar places on the plane. And then they realized we don't armor those places. We armor the places that we don't see the gunshots, because those are the planes that didn't come back. So when you're saying you only see clams that are closed, maybe that's because it's the only type of clams that are preserved long enough to become fossilized. So
really like this example.
Yeah, that was great.
You're just looking at a survivorship bias.
Okay, maybe with the survivor thing.
If I could just expand on that point really quickly, like he's basically saying if a clam is not buried rapidly, it's not going to be fossilized. We have clams that were buried rapidly because that's the ones that fossilized. If they weren't, if they just died on the surface somewhere, they're going to decompose, Kent. They're not going to become fossils. I mean, and I corrected Kent on this numerous times. They're not even clams when he's talking about the ones on Mount Everest. Like, they're just like brachiopods, like more basal brachiopods. They're not even technically clams. And he said, oh, yeah, okay, I'll call them brachiopods from now on. Yeah, guess what he did like 2 weeks later? Yeah, he's back to calling them clams. Like, it's just in one ear, out the other.
That's hilarious.
Engineers decided to armor the places that needed to be armored. That took intelligent design. It didn't happen by chance. The plane didn't just grow armor where it needed to grow armor.
No, it did happen by chance.
It happened by design, didn't it? No. They decided we better armor plate the cockpit. Now they got some of the airplanes have the titanium bathtub the pilot flies in. Really expensive.
Because all the planes that came back had no gunshot holes in the cabin. Because the ones that got gunshot.
See, science, what is this capitalization? I just have to point this out. What is this? Like, and what is this comment? This comment makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. I just need to say that.
Holes where the pilot are, they didn't come back. They didn't get to study those.
Right. That's logical. The planes can't fly themselves.
Right.
So you're saying
that is chance. That's probability.
Well, clams, all we've ever observed in the history of humanity, clams make baby clams every time. Mm-hmm. But you guys got the clams in your family tree as part of your ancestors. You believe you're related to a clam?
Yes.
Not directly. You have a common ancestor. Okay.
Yes.
You're welcome to believe that. I don't care what you believe, but it's not science. I wish you guys would just admit this is my belief. It's a religious belief, and that's all it is. It's a religion. You believe it, and you believe time can accomplish it. Billions of years, slow changes, billions of years. Those are your two gods. We don't see it happen, but we believe it happened. I say, yay, more power to you. Believe whatever you want. But I don't think tonight you've presented any evidence for evolution, except stuff proven wrong 150 years ago. Not true. So give me your next best one, and we got to quit. I can't hardly talk anymore.
AJ,
come on down to dinosaur.
This year for Christmas, I think I'm gonna ask slow changes for a new laptop. What are you gonna ask Deep Time?
Probably a new microphone, like an XLR one. I like this new one I got, but yeah, I've always wanted one of those.
Seriously, now he says we have two gods. We have slow changes and billions of years. It's like now they're two gods. It's not just time. I guess time is like a titan and had offspring of slow changes and billions of years. This is part of our pantheon.
No, maybe it's like a trinity. You have time, slow changes, and billions of
right. No, because billions of years and slow changes are the sons of time. Time is the father time, but they're all still the same because that's totally coherent and makes sense.
Well, it makes sense to say billions of years and time are the same thing, but that's why I was thinking maybe we need to get a third god in there. I don't know. The Trinity doesn't make sense anyway.
Yeah.
Adventureland. We'll put you up in one of our cabins, show you around. We can have the debate right here. My throat will be better by then. We've had a couple evolutionists come down. I offer it and invite them. We'll feed you, house you. No, don't charge nothing. We'd bring your whole family. Come on down. We'd love to have you, Keith. I'd like to see you give your heart to the Lord. Get saved. Because the path you've chosen not only is wrong scientifically.
This is when Kent has given up on the debate and is just BSing. You know, this is his outro speech that he's trying to give, and Keith doesn't let him. You can see how much time we have left. Keith doesn't let him pull this.
It's really going to be bad for your judgment day. If I'm right, this is Pascal's wager. If I'm right and you're wrong, you're in trouble. Now, if you're right and there's no God, I haven't lost anything. I'm going to the grave right next to you.
And the Islams are right.
Okay, maybe so. Bunch of different religions, and evolution's one of them. It's not a science.
You have to deny thousands of gods in order to call yourself a Christian.
Oh, I agree. I think all the rest of them are wrong.
I'm just denying one more.
Okay, that's the one you better not deny.
That's
like that one bullet hole in the wrong place. Whew, that's going to be bad. Okay, now, what other evidence do you have for evolution? I think that's what the topic of the debate is.
Geological column.
Okay, thank you. I would say there is no such thing as a geologic column. None. Does not exist anywhere in the world. I taught earth science 15 years. So maybe you can finally answer the question. I've asked hundreds of evolutionists to answer this simple question. They always avoid it. You claim the layers are different ages and the top layer is younger. This geologic column was made up in 1830. They claim the top layer is younger. Okay. Where did all the material come from for that top layer? Did it come from outer space? How many times
have I answered this?
How can the layers be different ages? My contention is every speck of dirt on the planet is the same age, whether it's 6,000 or 6 trillion. It's all the same age. If I shuffle a deck.
Okay, I want to challenge this notion, because when does dirt become dirt? Like, dirt comes from rocks, right? But a rock is like, you know, if it's like a pebble or it's like big enough to fit in your hand, it's not dirt. It's not until that rock breaks up into small enough pieces that those pieces can be considered dirt, right? So,
I mean, soil is specifically created by plants and root systems. So before there were plants, there was no soil. So I don't know if, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Just none of this makes any sense. And he said, oh, the atheists are always running from this. They never want to answer this directly. It's like, Kent, in literally every debate we have had, I have answered you directly on this point. I've probably talked to Kent about this at least 4 or 5 times now. And it's just like, Oh my God. It's just so annoying and frustrating and exhausting to hear him do this again. The same exact script that everyone and their mom and their dog has debunked him on numerous times directly to his face. It's just, he just can't learn anymore.
Yeah, like I answer Kent with an example of I asked him, how old is Mount Everest? Because Mount Everest was completed in 1953. So you would say it's just call it 50 years for sake of ease of addition. 50 years. Is it 50 years old, or are you going to date it based on the sculpture or the rock that makes up the sculpture? Because that's billions of years old, right? So it's yeah, the rock is billions of years old, but we don't say this. We say the sculpture. We're starting the clock when it was completed in 1953. It's the same thing when the layer is deposited. You start the clock at 0 then, but the sediment that makes it up is an older age.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Kent should be celebrating his 6,000th birthday as well as his grandchildren's 6,000th birthdays. Everyone on Earth should just be celebrating their 6,000th birthday because the material that makes us all up is the same age, right, Kent?
I liked your example where you, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but where you said that me and Kent are made up of the same atoms, but we're different ages. You know, that was easy to understand, you would think.
And then he just ran away from that. I mean, he acknowledged it and wanted to move past it.
Yeah, classic.
The top card's not younger. They're all the same age. If I tip these sand art toys over, they'll make 10 or 15 or 20 different layers. The layers aren't different ages. It's all in here at the same time. I keep asking, you claim the layers are different ages. Would you please tell me, where's the top layer coming from? Why is the Holocene only 10,000 years old, but the Cambrian is, billions of years old? Where was all that Holocene dirt sitting for billions of years, waiting to land?
Well, you say this
There's no
hasn't been answered yet, but
Nobody's
I've
ever
actually
answered.
heard people answer it for you.
Okay, well, you
said,
answer it one more time.
Does it come from space? Some of it, we get pelted from space with microscopic things that, yeah, they burn up in the atmosphere, but where do they end up? Still in our atmosphere.
Do you think there's enough?
You've got
Even
plenty of stuff coming up through volcanoes, and volcanic ash coming down, burying things with rapid sedimentation, which easily can create fossils, which many of them are found in fossilized ash.
Well, I can't find my deck of cards, but if I shuffle the
Think
deck
about
of
how
cards,
many leaves, just leaves, fall to the ground, and they decompose and turn to dirt.
True.
And all the
Okay,
dead animals and dead bugs and dead birds and
Right.
everything, all the death, they rot and become dirt, layering
Keith.
on top.
Okay, slow down. Let me explain. Trees suck minerals out of the ground, put it into their leaves. The leaf dies and goes back to the ground. It's the same mineral. It didn't get a new age because it went through the process of becoming a leaf. It's
But
still
it gets
the
laid
same
down
dirt.
in layers. It gets
Right.
moved.
Okay, wait.
And if
real
material
quick. Two quick clarifying points on this. The majority of the material of trees doesn't come from the ground. Most people conceptually think about trees as taking material from the soil and incorporating it to make a tree, but the majority of the mass of a tree comes from the air. It's coming from carbon dioxide in the air, not from the ground. The majority of the material of a tree. And then secondly, that was a great point that Keith brought up about there actually is lots of material coming in from space. And this was a fact I think I learned a few months ago that blew my freaking mind because it is way more material than you would ever think. There's about 100 tons of material coming from space every day. Each day, 100 tons. That's way more than I ever would have thought.
That's is that 200,000 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, 2,000 pounds times 100. I mean,
wow, that's crazy. But spread out over the entire Earth.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is mind blowing indeed.
comes from outer space and lands on the Earth, it's still the same age. Every speck of dirt, every speck of matter in the universe is the same age.
But
Why
you
do
can
you
trace
claim
the
they're
rates
different
of
layers?
sedimentation and figure out how long it took those layers to become
Right.
as thick as they are.
Now that's a different story. I think sedimentation can take place quickly. Here's a petrified
Sometimes it
tree
can't.
standing. Petrified trees found standing up, running through all these layers that you claim are different ages, are found all over the world. Thousands and thousands of petrified trees in the vertical position. Yellowstone's got a bunch of them. Petrified trees in the vertical position, I think, are pretty clear evidence all the layers formed in 1 year. In Noah's flood, the tide going up and down as the earth turns under this tidal bump that the moon holds steady is going to do what's called tidal pumping. The moon going up, the water going up and down is also going in and out. And it's a sideways movement of the water during Noah's flood that would make all the layers in 1 year. We find petrified trees in the standing position running through different seams of coal. This tree's got a 30-foot tree. Coal in the bottom goes up through a bunch of layers through another seam of coal. Same tree. And yet you guys think each seam of coal formed over millions of years with the whole forest having to grow. I'm telling you, the polystrata fossils, there are thousands of them in Joggins, Nova Scotia.
Yeah, this is something that bothers me that Kent does. He mentioned Yellowstone. Yeah, it's not one forest. It's like 26 forests on top of each other.
Yeah,
So,
Specimen Ridge.
Specimen Ridge, key difference there. And he always neglects to mention that. He says they're just trees. No, they're not just trees. They're individual forests stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, it's literally entire petrified forests, and then a layer of volcanic ash, which couldn't have formed during a flood, and then another forest, which couldn't have formed during a flood, and then another layer of volcanic ash, which couldn't have formed during a flood, 26 times. Like he wants us to believe that not only that all that happened within the 1 year of the flood, but also all the other layers as well.
Just to clarify, so you're talking about volcanic ash, not volcanic magma or lava that can go into water and then cools off and turns to stone. This is ash like that goes into the air that's dry.
Yes.
Okay.
Like layers that could not have formed underwater.
Is that the same thing as like the Pompeii, the volcano that killed all those people? Is that like this hydroplastic
I don't know how
flow?
similar the layers compare between those two.
I mean, volcanic ash, is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's like superheated. That's crazy what happened to those people.
Mm-hmm.
They were like...
It's good for fossilization.
Yeah.
It preserves the remains pretty markedly. Like you can literally make out some pretty fine details of these forests about what their constituents were. And we know you can't just grow an entire forest in under a year. 26 times.
Yeah, because didn't it preserve those people in the poses that they were in when they died?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with like the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, the trees got caught mid-pose.
Yeah. Get my good angle.
Go out, you're in North Carolina, drive up there and see. Call, let's see, got the phone number here. Got Ian Juby lives there. IanJuby.org.
Where are most of those polystrate fossils found? Near rifts and river basins?
Well, that's where they're exposed. I mean, you don't find them in the middle of a field.
Because that's where they are.
That's where most fossils are found too. Most fossils are found in a place where they're exposed to the, by a river cutting away the extra dirt. So petrified trees in the vertical position are common.
No, they're not.
They're exposed where rivers have eroded away.
That would be nice.
The layers, my point is, the layers all have to be formed in 1 year, or the tree would rot. And
yeah, they didn't have to go looking for Tiktaalik because he was just exposed. Like he was just on a riverbed.
I really think that like when Kent gets back into a corner, he'll literally just say anything to try to win the argument. He doesn't care if it's true. He doesn't care if he's just making it up. He'll literally just say whatever. Like it reminds me, like in one of my very earliest videos, it's only like 2 minutes long or whatever, but I literally contacted the expert that Kent himself has quoted as saying that like evolutionists are saying life evolved from rocks. And he quotes this guy. So I emailed that guy, and that guy said, that's a bunch of stupid nonsense. No, I'm not saying that. And I read the quote to Kent, and he said, listen, don't listen to that guy, okay? I'm the expert. Listen to me. He literally said that. It's like, he will just say anything.
Yeah, it's like, this guy was your source, Kent.
Yeah. I mean, he's literally an expert in geological aspects of like the early Earth and how that intersects with abiogenesis. Like, that is his field of research. He's an origin of life geochemist for the early Earth. He is literally one of the world's foremost experts on this topic. And when the guy said that what Kent is saying is stupid and ridiculous, Kent says, well, don't listen to him, okay? I'm the expert. I've got 4 PhDs.
Yeah, don't listen to this guy's opinion about what he actually said. I know what he meant.
Yeah. He's just so dishonest, man. He'll literally will just say anything to try to save face for his audience.
Yeah, it's actually quite disrespectful to scientists for him to say that. Very disrespectful.
Fall over. So you're saying your answer that the layers are different.
Fell into a rift, or it got covered up in a river basin.
In a river basin, it's going to make different layers quickly. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if I were to take a stake and just drive it down into the ground, that's not going to make it. Oh, it's going through several geologic columns. It's just penetration.
These trees aren't driven into the ground. They grew there. They have roots at the bottom. They grew. Nobody drove the trees.
And how would those root systems be intact if the entire Earth was flooded by 10 Atlantic Oceans?
If the Earth was flooded, the tide going up and down, making water go back and forth, is going to make multiple layers.
Would have uprooted these trees.
Some of them, in some places, and it obviously did. That's how we have coal.
20,000 feet of water.
There are coal seams that are 300 feet thick. That would take a lot of trees, whole lot of trees. I just made probably 12 layers in the last 6 minutes. This bottom layer is 18 million years old. Now this one's only 12 million years old, and this top one's only 3 million. I can make up any story I want. And it's not true about these layers. These layers are, every speck of sand in here was put in here at the same time. There's no different age for the sand layer.
I just want to say, totally, he just told on himself. He literally says that I can make up any story I want, and it's not true. Like, yes, exactly.
They'll form layers every time I do this, every time. They form different layer patterns. The layers we have on the Earth are all the same age, all made in one flood in the days of Noah, I believe. There is no such thing.
If it was a rapid rush of sedimentation, just completely.
No. Noah was in the ark for a year. That tide going up, down, is also going in, out, hundreds.
That would be very violent.
In some places,
it probably was. Currents.
Yeah, it probably was in some places.
How would you get very fragile insect wings, perfectly fossilized, undamaged, if you had mudslides of sedimentation just ripping through things? You're not going to have any insect wings fossilized.
Right. In those places. Right. Those places where it was real violent, it probably didn't make any insect fossils, but other places it was probably calm. I bet there's storms.
I think I lost you.
Be typhoons going on. Wow. There's a
I just wanted to point out that Keith literally made his channel like a few days ago, and Kent has been doing YouTube for longer than I have, and Keith has a better audio and mic quality than him.
And Kent has a whole tech guy.
Yeah. Oh, that guy. He's a piece of work.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great response from Keith, though. I mean, now Kent is saying, well, okay, there are some violent patches for the global flood that happened all over the Earth, and then there are some really cool, chill patches, and that were totally calm. Just a calm global flood that wiped out all life that was on the Earth's surface, okay? And then we do find insects there, but we don't find insects in these other patches. Really, let's test that hypothesis, Kent. Why don't you point to me where on Earth one of these calm patches of the flood was, and then let's go see if we can find any fossilized insects there. Let's test this hypothesis of yours.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah, doesn't affect Lenox, Alabama. We can have a hurricane in Lenox that does not affect the people in North Carolina. So
But a global flood would affect it globally.
Oh, I agree. A global flood would do
So
just
why
what
would
it
you
does
have
now.
different currents if this is
Okay.
all homogenized?
All right, the Pacific Ocean is huge. There are places right now on the Pacific where they're experiencing violent storms.
Do you
There's
have
other
any
places
trees
on
at the
the
bottom of
ocean.
it?
What?
Do you have any trees standing at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of trees get buried in mud. A lot of trees floating around in the ocean right now. Trees are floating all over bodies of water.
Rooted trees standing in the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, probably so. Mount St. Helens did that. It blew thousands of trees down. Many of them got buried standing up, floating in
Those weren't
Spirit
rooted.
Lake.
But those weren't rooted. Those didn't have root systems.
Well, in those cases, they got ripped out. They have short root stump because it got ripped out. But if it would have eroded slowly, then it would have had the whole root system. Okay, we're wasting time here, and I can't hardly talk. I'm sorry. I'll do another debate with you anytime if we can get my voice back in time. But you're saying, I asked you the question, where's this material coming from? And you said volcanic eruptions, outer space dust, and was there a third one?
Plant waste, animal waste, deterioration.
Deposition.
We've got about 15 minutes left. Grayson, you down to finish this off?
Yeah. I'm all good. But yeah, I mean, really just basic how all sedimentary layers are formed. Deposition. That's a big one there, Kent.
Yeah, because I think this, as it gets closer and closer to the end, is when I think the debate gets better and better, in my opinion. So I think it's been getting better because he's been getting more sort of agitated with Kent and, sort of calling him out, and he's had a lot of great examples. So that's why I said I've been so far pretty impressed with Keith's performance. That's why I wanted to take a look at this debate.
He's been clapping back with some good ones, and Kent has not been able to go toe to toe. I mean, Kent's response is just to try to change the subject or make something up or just say, oh, I really can't talk. I got to go.
Yeah. Keith, if you see this video, hit me up on Discord or email, and we'll talk more about future debates with Kent, because the more good debaters we can sort of build, I think the better community, the better it serves the overall community. I'd love to see fresh faces that are good at doing this. It's always exciting. So
okay, animal waste. So an animal eats a plant, goes up, poops on the ground. It now becomes a different age.
It relocates it. It relocates.
It's still the minerals are still the same age. Relocating it, shuffling a deck of cards does not make one older or younger. Relocating the dirt does not change the age of it. Every speck of dirt in the universe is the same age. If it came from a big bang, then it's all 13.772 billion years old. Every speck of dirt on the planet should be 13.772. How do you know when it was relocated?
Wait. Does Kent not believe in nuclear fusion now? Like,
Kent seems to think, or he says that basically that the Earth was formed right when the Big Bang happened. I don't know why he says this, but that's what he says.
Even if young Earth creationism is true, right now in the sun, new elements are being fused. Like what he just said, even in his own worldview paradigm, is wrong.
It's a good point.
Like he literally just has to reject nuclear fusion at this point in order to save face and act like he was right, actually.
Yeah.
It was all made at the same time. Every speck of dirt in the universe was made at the same time, either by your Big Bang or by a creator. There is no such thing as a geologic column. No such thing.
If all of the dirt was formed right when God created the universe, then how can you say that all of the fossil layers formed in 1 year? Because that means they're a year old, right? I don't know. Well, they're the same
he
age.
doesn't think that the fossil he doesn't think that the geologic layers are the age of the Earth. He thinks that they're all the age of the flood.
He thinks they're a year old, right?
Like, yeah, even for a young Earth creationist, what Kent is saying doesn't make any sense. Like, even in that worldview, he's still spewing nonsense.
Dude, that would be a good thing to call him out on. I never even realized that. That's hilarious.
Was made up in 1830. Billions of people have.
Why are the patterns so consistent? Why do we never find things in the wrong place?
Well, they're not consistent. There's only 2 or 3 places in the world where they find them in this order they show in the textbook.
Do you ever
Most of the world
do you ever
have them
see
in
a
this order.
human fossil with bite marks from a T-Rex?
Well, if everything was vegetarian before the flood came, like the Bible says, you probably wouldn't find bite marks on those that drowned at all.
That's not even what the Bible says.
Because they weren't eating each other.
If everything,
Like, now he's confusing pre-flood with the Garden of Eden. Like, because things stopped being vegetarian in his own worldview after, like, Adam and Eve sinned, right?
After
the flood, I think.
No, it's after, like, death was introduced into the world after Adam and Eve sinned. The original sin. Then that was the fall of man, and that's when things started killing each other and diseases and death came about. So even, like, he's, like, not even correct in his own worldview. Like, he just said that the Bible says that there was, like, that everything was vegetarian before the flood. Like, show me that verse, Kent. Why don't you just show me the verse that says that in your Bible?
So he says that everything was vegetarian before the flood, and then after the flood, they started eating meat after they got off the boat.
I don't even think Kent knows what he's saying anymore, honestly. There's absolutely no way if you played him this quote of him saying that, he would just say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember saying that. I didn't mean that, actually. Blah, blah, blah.
Don't listen to that guy.
He would never own this.
Yeah, you say, don't listen to that guy.
Yeah, don't listen to him. Okay, I'm the expert.
Was perfect back then. Why did they need to eat at all?
Well, if you had a perfect car, why do you need to put gas in it?
A perfect car wouldn't need gas.
Oh, electric car. Well, then you got to charge it up. Okay.
Well,
You got to keep putting something in.
A perfect car wouldn't need any kind of fuel.
Hey, you make one of those, I'll buy it. I want one that don't have to charge. Don't
I
cost
would
nothing
too.
to drive.
There is no perfect.
All right. Why don't you give your closing statement, or I'll give mine first, whichever you would like.
Do you see what I mean? How there's no mod?
Yeah.
Like, this is weird. I wonder what Donnie thinks about this.
He's probably, like, seething in the corner somewhere.
Well, he's like, all those super chats I missed out on.
Yeah.
Your position is, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, that we all have a common ancestor, and you are related to a potato, and what else? A clam, and you have a common ancestor with all these. That's your position. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm related to all of those things. Yes.
My position is, all we've ever seen is animals produce what anybody else would consider the same kind. Cows make baby cows, no exceptions. To claim that a cow and a fish, what now?
I said that's all you see whenever you don't look.
Oh, ask any farmer in the history of the world. Have you ever seen your cow produce something other than a cow?
Yeah, I like that one.
Do you know of any I can go look at? I'll go look at them.
As I said before, it doesn't happen like that.
Doesn't happen at all.
Always going to give birth to a cow. That's something we agree on.
Very good.
What we don't agree on is the fact that these microevolutions can add up until it becomes a question of whether or not you can call that a cow.
This is where you're showing us
different does a pug need to be from a husky before you call them different?
I happen to have a pug. It is just barely in the dog kind, okay? Real stupid, okay? Wouldn't survive 10 minutes in the woods on its own. Most of these exotic breeds that man has created, A, they're still the same kind, still dog. B, most of them would
For how
not
long?
survive in nature.
How long
What?
will they be a dog? How different does it need to be? If you had a pug and you gradually mutated it, and maybe you got a pug with feathers, would that
Do
still
you
be
think
a
we
dog?
could we ever get the pug to grow, any dog to grow wings and become a bird and fly? Could we add that information?
That's a major step further. I'm saying just changing the fur to feathers. If you were to change the fur
Okay, this is my favorite part of the whole debate.
to feathers, would that be a dog?
Nobody's ever done that. They can't change the fur to a feather.
Regardless of
It's
whether or
not
not anybody's done that, if they did, would you still call it a dog?
A feathered dog. If they did put feathers on it, they would. Who's doing this? This is intelligent
Nobody is
people.
doing it. It's just a.
Well, you're making up a silly story. If I said, well, if elephants could fly, what would you say then? Don't stand under them when they fly by. You know?
It's called a thought experiment.
I can't understand.
Would you call that a different kind? If it
would you call an elephant that could fly a different kind?
I would.
Okay. Call it whatever you want. My point is, what science is supposed to be is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. To show a kid a chart like this and say cows are related to hummingbirds is criminal. They should.
It looks like we have Kent in the chat. So I don't know if you know this, but you and me have a debate scheduled for March 19th. So I'm ready as well. I've been training like Rocky, so I doubt Kent is still here. It's probably Joseph, but
I just want to point out, like, this is a great question, and I wish that Kent had the balls to actually answer it directly, like, because guess what? We have induced a mutation that caused feather growth for an animal that doesn't normally grow feathers, called an alligator. Like, we've literally changed alligator scales into feathers with a mutation. So I want to know, does that qualify it as a different kind now? I mean, Kent really, really was evasive with that question. He did not want to answer Keith's question there.
Oh, it's going to continue. Have you not seen the clip where I show Kent that exact like thing, the alligator embryo? He said, "I don't believe you for 1 second."
Oh, it might be a fake conspiracy, I guess.
Yeah. I'll show you that maybe in the offline, or I'll send you the link.
Did not do this in a public school. Private school can teach whatever they want. The Muslims can teach what they want in their school. The Catholics can teach what they want in their school. But if we're all going to pay for it, this is criminal to teach this. And to say that you're related to an octopus, this has no business being in a public school. None. It's not science. To say that your 325 millionth cousin was an octopus. This is propaganda, nothing else.
But you
Keith,
still
you have
never
a
really
closing
answered my question. Would a feathered pug be a dog, in your opinion?
I think it's a ridiculous question. Would a feathered elephant be an elephant? You answer that one.
I think you're just dodging the question because
I think it's a dumb question. Okay, real dumb. Okay, it doesn't happen. We don't see dogs produce feathers. Why would you make a statement like that? I'm not dodging the question. It's a silly question. We see dogs produce dogs. They now have 339 recognized breeds of dogs by the American Kennel Association. They're all dog. Nobody has seen.
It's very easy to do genetic manipulation and change from scales to feathers. So, or
It's
feathers to
easy.
scales. So let's say they did some CRISPR stuff and had a chicken with scales.
Well, chickens already have scales on their legs and feathers on their
but I'm
body.
saying whole body.
It's adding how many scales they've already got scales on their legs.
Right, but
Do chickens have? How about get chickens that can breathe underwater? Gills.
okay.
Make me one of
What
those.
if we did that?
Good. Make me one. Can you make one? Chickens that can breathe underwater.
But
Can anybody make one?
If it were made tomorrow, would you call that a chicken?
No, that would be something new. If a bunch of scientists had to do it, that wouldn't be evidence for evolution. That'd be evidence it takes intelligence to make those changes.
Okay. So that's evolution, right? What he's describing. And he's saying that would be a different kind. That's what Ken said? That would be a different kind?
He said if a chicken could breathe underwater, it's no longer the same kind. That's what he just said.
Well, get working, scientists.
How would the scientists do it? They would change the genetic code. What if the mutations change to the genetic code?
We don't observe this happening. You're making up a fairy tale. What if?
I know how they would do it. So a chicken, this ties back to Haeckel. A chicken is a vertebrate embryo, and it has the gill slits, the pharyngeal arches. Just develop them into gills. It's so simple. Then it can breathe underwater. Chicken breathing underwater, new kind. Easy.
Right,
This isn't
because I'm
science.
trying to get you to see the logic of it, that you're trying so hard to die.
It's not logical. It's not logical that you get a magic flying carpet. What if Aladdin really could fly on a
that's not
carpet?
logical,
Oh, you say
because
that?
you're talking
It doesn't
about
happen.
magic. Now you're getting into biblical stuff. I'm talking
No.
about evidence.
The evidence is there are 339 recognized breeds of dogs. The evidence is dogs have always produced dogs. Man selects one to survive with a trait that he likes, artificial selection, natural selection, both work fine. They only select what's already there. You're never going to select a dog that can fly. That's not in the gene code. I can't talk anymore. I am so sorry. Joseph, schedule another one with him. And let's have another, if you want, round two. I would like to see your best evidence for why we should believe a dog and a banana have a common ancestor, or you have a common ancestor with a potato. Why would you believe that? Can you do that? You want to give contact information if people want to contact you, or would you rather not?
Yeah, I believe you have my email.
Well, I mean, if anybody else wants to schedule you for a debate, I give mine all the time.
Oh.
There's my address, bigdrdino.com. My address, my phone number. I'm not ashamed of where I live, but.
Right, well, I've got my YouTube channel that I've actually just now started, The Faithless Heathen.
So go and subscribe to this guy. I want to help build this channel because I am a big fan of his debate performance here. And just quickly, Kent, it is not normal to give out your phone number and address at will. And just in a recent video, Kent doxed Mr. Anderson again. And shame on you for doing that, Kent. People on the internet are allowed to have they're allowed to preserve their anonymous status. You don't get to take that away. It's wrong.
He's just like trying to shame the guy for not giving out his email and address. Like, it's like, what? That's so weird, man. Also, like, it's so obvious that all life is like related. Like, we literally have genetic similarities between these things. Genetic similarity proves relation. It's the same principle that a paternity test works on. The creationists even agree with this across different species that cannot interbreed. Like, they believe that all cats came from a cat kind, and a snow leopard, my favorite animal, is very genetically similar to tigers, but they cannot interbreed. They are different species. But a creationist does believe that the genetic similarities between a snow leopard and a tiger, two different species, are proof that they are related and share a cat ancestor. So, like, the genetic similarities, the pattern of nested hierarchies we see in those similarities is proof of universal common ancestry.
Grayson said all life is created. It's game over. You got to delete your channel now.
they're gonna snip that.
Yep.
Supposed to be doing questions a half hour ago. I am so sorry. Call some questions up. Let Keith talk for a minute. Or I get my throat back under control.
Who is going to call the questions up?
I've got my new YouTube channel.
Never mind.
Faithless Heathen.
The Faceless Heathen.
The Faithless.
Faceless.
Without
Spell it. I can't. Oh, without faithless.
Yes.
You are
Faithless.
faithless. You have more faith than you realize. Okay, you have a lot more faith than I have. You believe a amoeba can turn to a human. That's a lot more faith than I got.
You believe in dragons and witches and wizards and giants.
I do.
That's in the Bible.
Okay. All right. Question.
Wait.
Here's one for you. So far says,
That is so dishonest what Kent just did. He's like, oh, I do. I believe in those things. Like, yeah, Kent, I've been to Dinosaur Adventureland. I've seen your exhibits on giants and dragons there saying that they're real.
Yeah. And Kent also referenced Aladdin earlier, which has a genie in it. The Bible has genies in it. It's the jinn. That's so just thought that was funny.
How do evolutionists explain free thought? Go ahead. How would you explain free thought?
Free thought. Thoughts are just firing of neurons. I mean, if you had some sort of omnipotent God, there would be no free thought, because he would already know what you're going to think before you think it, and therefore you can't think something else and prove him wrong. He already knows what's going to happen, so it's predestined. So you don't really have any free thought or free will. But from an evolutionary standpoint, you do, essentially.
Interesting.
Okay. Then I would like to ask, if your brain is nothing but a bunch of chemicals that got together by chance, how do you know that you can trust your thoughts? Maybe you got a couple chemicals in there backwards. Remember that CATG?
Our senses are practically useless a lot of times. That's why optical illusions work, because we can barely comprehend the world around us with our senses. That's why scientists use things outside of our senses.
Okay. Next question.
That was a great answer.
If anybody wants to hear my thoughts about free will, that's the subject of my newest video on my channel. So check that out at Based Theory.
Yeah, I'm like, don't get Grayson started on this question because we'll be here another hour.
Yeah. Hey, that video was only 15 minutes, so.
It's good video, though. I really liked it.
We see monkeys, we see people. Where's all the part monkeys? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, so I think that's about it. I don't think we need to watch this last part. But
I mean, we could go and list some of the part monkeys for this mouth breather here. Like, there's plenty of transitional fossils all along like the simian evolutionary line. Like, we could go through them. Like, I think like Darwinius is the genus name for like a very basal like primate relative. Like, that's a part monkey, dude. We've got fossils for it.
So this isn't like Lucy. That's like ape and human. They're talking about monkey and human.
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what they're even asking for. I mean, if they're asking for that, then yeah, we've got tons. We've got Australopithecus, Ardipithecus, Homo habilis, Sahelanthropus, Aurorine. Like, you can go on and on. There's like tons of these transitionals between non-human apes and humans.
Homo ergaster. There's a lot of them.
They're all dead.
They're all dead.
So in the past, something ape-like turned to human, but there's plenty of apes and monkeys today.
I just like on Kent's slide how he has Keith and then question marks because he didn't provide his last name. Like, his identity is a mystery. I can't dox him. And he spelled TikTok wrong. That makes me laugh.
But none of them are doing it
that
again.
Turns to human. That sounds too Pokemon for me.
Okay.
It didn't just morph and change one.
Did Kent really just basically ask, why do chimpanzees not give birth to humans today? That really does sound like what his question just was.
Pretty much.
An individual did. The whole population slowly changed. I know what you believe. My answer would be, there aren't any because it didn't happen. Didn't happen. But you got the question first. Anything you want to add to that? Oh.
You want to add anything?
Oh, Nate. No. You don't want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Keith, I'm sorry. Nate says, what will happen to you when you die? What's your answer?
Essentially what happened to me before I was born. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay. I would have a different answer. I know I'm forgiven. I'm going to heaven. I don't deserve it at all, but I'm going. Praise God for the blood of Jesus Christ.
That's creepy, man. Praise God for the blood of Jesus Christ. Like that just sounds like really creepy to me. Just as someone that's not super steeped in religion, I was never raised religious. That just sounds like hella creepy.
Yeah, I personally find the thought of just because I love sleeping. I would sleep all day. I mean, I do sleep all day sometimes. If I get depressed, I'll sleep for like a week, which is not good. But so I find that much more comforting, the idea of just after I'm dead, just blackness, rather than going to some weird like heaven, like idea of heaven where I have to be around like other people who got into heaven, and like I can't control. According to Kent, Jeffrey Dahmer is going to be there, and like it's for eternity.
Really?
Yeah, Kent said that Jeffrey Dahmer got his materials in prison and he got saved, and so he's going to heaven. But me and Big Bad Mama busted Kent on this because it turns out that it was actually Institute for Creation Research. His dad sent books from ICR to Jeffrey Dahmer's dad sent books from ICR, not Kent's DVDs. So we actually got confirmation of that. I just think that's funny.
So Kent thinks that he's going to be spending eternity with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes.
Yikes, man. That yikes.
Yeah, eternity with Kent and Jeffrey Dahmer in heaven.
Well, I honestly, AJ, I don't think I can do any more of listening to Kent tonight. Keith did kill it. He did great. He definitely, you were right. As it went on, it got better and better as he seemed to lose patience for Kent's BS.
Yeah. And I know I kept you a little longer than I said, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it as much as I did. That the end of that debate, where my favorite part was when he was just calling Kent out for dodging this simple question that he was asking over and over, because Kent hates hypothetical questions. He does not want to answer them.
Something about not being able to think abstractly, I think.
Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
That was basically everything that I expected out of just any given Kent Hovind debate. I mean, he's just going to be replaying the greatest hits, trying to relive his glory days. But he's never going to get that back. I mean, he's been in a steady decline, both in terms of revenue at Dinosaur Adventureland, viewership on his videos, and just overall people who think that he's relevant in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it's very quickly now that nobody's going to remember this dude in a couple decades. So I'm just looking forward to that bright future. You know, Kent might think that he will spend his future hanging out with Jeffrey Dahmer, but hopefully in the future, we can all live in a world where nobody remembers who Kent Hovind is, because he hasn't remembered anything that has happened to him in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to the people in the chat. We had like 75 people watching in the side chat. Always great community for these live streams. That stream we did with you and Mark Reed was a lot of fun. The sex ed video,
yeah, the sexual holocaust.
Yes, and I'm glad that you guys got to put that on your channels too, so more people can see it, because that was a crazy video. Man, the stuff Eric Hovind said. Anyway,
my channel just hit 1,600 subscribers. I'm super happy. So if you haven't checked out my channel, Based Theory, please go check it out and consider subscribing, because it gives me those happy chemicals.
Yeah, go. I'll have Grayson's channel tagged and Keith's channel. I want to send some people over to Keith's channel because I'd like to get this guy some growth, because I was really impressed with his debate performance. And yeah, like the video, and just check out all the links, Patreon channel memberships, and me and Grayson are signing off. So see you in the next one.